The Football Pod on OTB Sports.
In partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship.
Check out #TheToughest for more.
Hello everybody, and you're very welcome along to episode 13 of the Football Pod, brought to you in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more. Paddy Andrews, we have just witnessed the opening weekend of the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. How did you feel after that weekend? Easter Sunday?
Yeah, it's...
Did you feel buzzed? Were you excited?
I'm not going to lie, I wasn't. It was kind of similar last season as well. They're not the biggest games to start with. We obviously had the All-Ireland champions kicking into gear on Saturday evening, and despite a ropey enough first half, and you're kind of raising eyebrows, there might be some sort of shock on the cards with Fermanagh. Tyrone fairly put that to bed in the second half. So that wasn't the most enthralling kick-off to the championship. And then obviously we did a couple of games yesterday over in London and New York. So.
I thought it was pretty cool. I just think it's pretty cool having that element of it, of being in Ruislip and being in New York. And I got to watch the first half of Sligo New York on GA Go. It's such a pity that a bigger deal wasn't made of the fact that we're in London, we're in New York, the All-Ireland Championships is kicked off. It should be a festival of a weekend. James, Conor O'Rourke said it was going to start like an almighty whimper. Did you feel like it was an almighty whimper this weekend?
No, I didn't. I enjoyed the Tyrone Fermanagh game, and like the New York game had some savage scores in it. You know, both Sligo and New York had some great play there. And in the London and Leitrim game, I thought it was, it was very competitive. So I didn't think it was a whimper of a start, but it's not like the hurling, whereas the Munster Championship just kicks off and it's on
the
fire.
hurlers again.
It's a slower start.
Hurlers taking over like, as usual.
Yeah. Well, Sunday certainly took over with the hurling. Like I think Saturday was maybe similar. I just think that we need to get better at whether it's fireworks, whether it's Ed Sheeran singing before the games. I don't know what it is. We need to just blow it up a little bit when we're starting these things and kicking them off.
Like from looking at the games, Tommy, I suppose the positive. So there was big crowds in Gaelic Park, and like we know you dropped the ball by not getting the Football Pod over to at least one of those games
next year.
We'll know for next year. Yeah. But no, look, they're really competitive games. Again, the drawback. Okay, look, there was a massive weekend of hurling with some of the games going on there. The Sunday game only gave the football about 10 minutes at the end of the coverage, which was probably slightly unfair, considering because there were some brilliant scores and there were really competitive games between Leitrim and London and Sligo and New York as well. So, look, we're up and running. It is unique that we're at the Easter weekend and the championship is kicked into gear. I think this Sunday we are getting a proper kickoff with two of the biggest games in the provincial championships that we're going to see this season with Galway and Mayo over in Mayo Park and Donegal and Armagh, which we're going to talk about later on. But look, no major surprises. We expected Leitrim and London to be tight. We expected New York and Sligo to be tight, and we expected Tyrone to have too much for Fermanagh, and that's the way it panned out. So our predictions are pretty decent, lads, for starting off for week one. We'll see how long we can keep that
downhill from here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we'll do that. We'll have a look at all the games that are coming up this weekend a little later. We're going to focus on Donegal, Armagh and Galway Mayo, because that Sunday, that 2:00, 4:00 throw-in, that is going to be savage. I'd love to have an eye on Clare Tipperary in the hurling, but I just don't think it's going to happen. James, David Clifford was spotted. Darren Moynihan was spotted in the crowd in
Finbar Murphy, Legion man with him.
Finbar Murphy with him. Okay. In Park Equip. Would you have ever been spotted at a Munster hurling game?
No, never been.
Never been.
No, Actually, there was a game on in Killarney one time years ago. I'd say it must have been 7 or 8. I don't know who was playing, and it was on before a football match, and I saw about 15 minutes of it. That's as much hurling as I've ever seen.
Very memorable, by the sound.
Out of respect for the football, it's football versus hurling, like, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I love being a football snob.
Yeah.
Paddy, what about you, Lack? Would you have ever picked up a hurl or poked the schlitter, as they say?
If you ask around St. Bridget's, I was the worst hurler, and it was afraid of my life, lads.
Really?
I got a couple of bangs playing under 12, under 13, and that was the end of it. Never again.
Yeah. Do you see one of the tip lads got a belt into the head? On the commentary, they didn't even mention it. He was absolutely split open.
James Kennedy, wasn't it?
Was it Kennedy? Yeah.
Kennedy was split open, yeah.
It was kind of around the square, and your man just belted him on top of the head, and goes, he got no tip in the head. He was gushing, he was losing litres of blood.
The same in the Cork Limerick game as well. Second half off Galan, and the second half one of the Cork defenders. Lads, that's not for me. No.
But before we mention Cian Lynch's moment of magic, have you ever seen a team like Limerick that are so physically dominant? Like they're absolutely. Were you that physically dominant? Like Paddy, I'm thinking of you wearing a number 10
financially
jersey.
Dominant.
Like you didn't talk out as big as Garrod Hegarty, Paddy.
Well, we got jerseys that fit us.
Okay.
He's a monster, to be fair to him.
Oh,
he is an absolute, and to move the way he does then is,
and a better footballer than a hurler, James.
I doubt that.
He was a sensational underage, but I don't think he could play the same way. Not underage, even when he was 18, 19, he played with the Limerick seniors.
Limerick are a joy to watch. They are. And look, we're not exactly hurling aficionados on this pod now, but
no.
Some of the performances they've put in over the last 2 or 3 years, I'm thinking last year's All-Ireland final, they do, tongue-in-cheek a bit, but they do remind us of our team at our peak, that they can go through a phase of 7 or 8 minutes and just take the game away from a team.
Yeah.
And the most impressive thing about Limerick, you're looking and seeing it again yesterday, they are savages for work.
Savages.
Like whatever Kiley has gotten into them, and it's the squad they have, and you see the guys rolling off the bench, Pat Ryan and these guys, and they're clipping unbelievable scores as well. There's obviously savage competition in there, but they work like dogs.
They get
serious that to go with their skill.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with. But yesterday, I enjoy watching them.
I like watching them too.
Couple of years, yeah.
They're a team that play with their chest out. Like, would you have, like, they were obviously responding in ways to quite a slow league, and people are probably asking questions of them. Paddy, did you ever feel like you were going out with your chests out in particular? Did you know what I mean by that? Like, not being cocky or overconfident, but just like, we are the reigning All-Ireland champions. Like, they have an air about them.
We never really spoke about it, but I think that was, we would have known in the back of our heads. Like that's just comes with when you're winning games. We went through a phase kind of around the middle of Jim's reign where I think we had the longest unbeaten run. We didn't lose for 30 or 30 odd games. We never really spoke about it. And we'd never go into a game saying, look, we need to be confident, or it was just in the background. You knew it. You knew we had the talent in the squad, and we just got momentum behind us. And like I said, we had 2 or 3 years, we were just winning all throughout the National League as well. So I think any team that gets momentum and gets a run has that nearly an unspoken mentality going into games. And we even spoke about it looking at Tyrone this year. Okay, they had a kind of hit and miss league, but you can see some of their players are carrying that aura now, having performed last year, having won an All-Ireland. You can see it with Ryan O'Donoghue in Mayo as well. When players have a breakout year, or teams have a breakout year, it just brings with it a confidence. And you can see it in their play. It removes that little bit of doubt that's in your head. And when you're looking at Limerick now, what they've done over the last number of years, they can, I doubt they speak about this, but you can see it in their play. And
they bullied Cork yesterday. Like there was a bullying that we witnessed. Like
I'd say with the Limerick boys, they nearly need to kind of roll it back a bit, because it looks like they have some serious personality and serious character, you know, and they just need to simmer. But like if they they could put the chest out even more. Do you know? Definitely. I just think they have it. They just have that swagger, that aura, that mentality. Yeah. But like it's an edge. It's you kind of teeter on that. If you go too far, it'll be your downfall. But if you don't have enough of it, you'll be caught as well. So they just have enough. I just think it's class.
There are a few boys there that are operating on the edge. You know that it could spill over a little bit. But as Garrod Hegarty put it a few weeks ago, you have to play on the edge in a game like that, and that's what they're definitely doing.
But so many teams, Tommy, try and take them on with it. Like Team Waterford last year in the semi-finals, in Cork in the final last year. I think you're barking up the wrong tree if you're trying to take Limerick on and go toe-to-toe with them and match them, like nearly wrestling with the pig. Like that's not the way to go
with Limerick. Yeah, Mayo obviously did it with G-Lock. Mayo went toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose with G-Lock.
They did, yeah. And look, they're one of the teams that put it up to us. That worked for them and their personnel. But we had other teams that kind of tried to take us on physically, and it didn't suit their players. It didn't suit it. I remember playing Tyrone in a very famous game where in 2017, in the semi-final, where there was a lot of talk coming from Tyrone that they had the game plan and they had the mentality to take on this Dublin team, and they were going to do this, that, and the other. And we went out and we took that, we used that going into that game, and we absolutely blew them out of the water physically as well as anything else. So I think you've got to understand the players you have at your disposal, and you've got to look at the opposition and go, well, what does not suit them? How do we take them out of their comfort zone? If teams are going in playing Limerick in this current Limerick team in the Hurling Championship and going, well, we take them out of the comfort zone physically.
No, it's not going to happen.
That's not going to end well.
Did you do that, James? Did you try and physically? It strikes me that you didn't approach Dublin the same way that Mayo did.
No, we never thought physically about it. It was more tactical, definitely, and more football based when we were playing Dublin. And then with Mayo, I think we did have kind of an awareness that the physical aspect would come into it, say pre-throw in or maybe off the ball a bit more. But with Dublin, we always thought it was kind of more football, more athleticism, football that way, rather than hopping off each other or anything like that.
Can I ask you about a piece in the Examiner on Saturday, James? Because there's a lot of chat about it this week. It got sent in to us. Infus Morris's column. There's a couple of great photos here. There's a great photo of you, the whole team on the beach, and you're sitting there, and I think you've got a wee hat in your head, and you're on the ground.
Broken man at that stage.
You're a broken man at that stage. Can you talk us through a little bit? Because it's a fantastic column in the Irish Examiner, and it's simple in a way. Like, he's just explaining the benefits that came with buying into something like that and getting away as a team together. He spoke about the weeks in Portugal that you've mentioned before, but this is a weekend. Was it up in one of the mountains in Kerry? Was it it wasn't Galtimore, was it? Oh, it was
Galtimore, yeah. It's Galtimore, which is over a couple of counties in Munster.
Yeah, it's around by Tip as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but...
Oh, it's the Galtee Mountains, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that whenever we did those kind of weekends or week-long trips, we always got an unbelievable amount out of it. Whereas if we kind of went training for a big block or something, it would all kind of just kind of fade into one block of training, whereas you wouldn't really get as much out of it. But if you kind of got something different into your training, like a weekend away, everyone remembers it, and it just seems to be kind of something that really brings a group together. But that time was in 2014, all right, when we went to Galtimore, and we lost Galvin to Moss, and I think Gooch was after doing the cruciate as well for the Crokes against Castlebar. So I'd say Fitzmaurice was trying to get like the group together and see could we get a few new leaders and things like that. So we went up there anyway. He didn't tell us we were going. He just said, be at the Fitzgerald Stadium at 6:30. So up we landed anyway, with a list of things to bring. I think he mentioned that in the article. I thought they were taking the mix with the list.
I was so surprised you weren't caught out.
I was caught out. I thought that they'd do that every so often. They'd say, "Oh, bring all this stuff," and then they'd laugh at you. They're going, "Oh, you brought that." So I was looking at the list. I was like, "This is a piss take." So I'd say I brought half of it. Just I thought I'd bum off anything else that I needed. But
do you remember what was on the list?
It was all just random stuff that you wouldn't need. Like it was a tin of bachelor's beans, I think. And even if you had like they went through the stuff, this army crowd. Like we got to a certain stage at about 7:30 in the morning, maybe 8:00 in the morning, and the bus just stopped. And next thing, the bus was raided by this army crowd saying, "Pull your hat over your head. Don't look at me. Put it down over your eyes. Get off the bus. Get off the bus." Next thing, they're grabbing you under the armpit and throwing you off the bus. And at this stage, I'm like, oh, no. 8:30, maybe 8:00. And we're thinking we're in serious trouble here. And it was just fear. It was just panic. And there was about 35 of us, and it was like down on the ground and you can't see a thing. You don't know where you are. Into a plank position or into a half push-up. And we were there for it felt like hours. An army crawling through muck and gutter.
Are you not laughing and thinking it's hilarious, no?
At the first 5 minutes, fair enough. After that, it's like, oh, no, we are in for a world of pain here. Because they didn't tell us what time to be home either. They didn't say we were coming home, or we had absolutely no idea when this was ending. Do you know, if someone said, right, you're going to be tortured here for 2 hours, you'd say you get through anything. But we had no end time.
It was an overnight, Jimmy, was it?
No, we were back late that night.
We were back in the same day.
Fitzmaurice wrote, Mark O'Shea also got pinged. So Dahi Casey, Paddy O'Shea. That Casey got caught. Mark O'Shea also got pinged, which was very unlike him, both in terms of his professionalism and also the fact that he was usually far too cute to get caught out. One of the items on the Rangers lists was a tin of Bachelor's beans. Mark had brought the Heinz variety. In fairness to him, he didn't raise the white flag straight away, as he quickly took the wrapper off the can when he realised his mistake. He wasn't fooling the boys, though. He too had to wear a gas, so they put gas masks on the lads that messed up.
Yeah.
Were you putting a gas mask?
Yeah, I'd say there was 2 gas masks, and there was probably 6 of us maybe who had to wear them, we had to share them. But like it was so heavy. I'd say what they'd done was like weighed it down with things, so it had to kind of drag you down on your neck and everything. It was just to torture you mentally, and you couldn't breathe. And we just went on this hike. So in the bag, like they'd made the bag or the list of things you had to bring fairly heavy as well. So then we had to go on this hike or this run, starting off with a run to our base camp. So we were wearing gas masks filled with basically rocks in your bag. The fellas were wearing all types of shoes because they didn't know what they were doing. Like, it wasn't like you were wearing runners. It was just torturous.
And does that pay off? Like,
but no, it does, because what we did, we went into we had teams. We went into about 4 or 5 hours of like team building exercises, which were all torture based, really. Like you had to go into the water, and they'd say, "Get your head under the water," like freezing cold. "Get your head under the water, and only come up when we tell you." So you put your head under the water, you can't hear a thing, so you don't know when they're going to call you back up. So there was fellas just shooting back up, and next thing it was like, "Who are you? Who are you?" I say, "Oh, Fionn Fitzgerald." "Fionn, you just cost your teammates half an hour more in the cold water." And everyone was like, "Oh, Jesus, Fionn, will you keep your head down?"
He never played again, did he?
Yeah, it was like, it was torture. And then we
just bombed them out after that, like.
Yeah, and we'd be in push-ups, and like all the bigger fellas then would obviously be struggling with the push-ups, like, and
yeah.
So they'd hit the deck. It's like, "Who are you?" "Kieran Donaghy." "Never heard of you." "Get down." It was being tortured, but we did it for like, honestly, 4 or 5 hours of all this torture stuff, and they called us in, and they were like, in fairness, it was very good for building like leadership skills and all that, but they called us in, and they're like, "Well done, lads." And we're like, "Brilliant, that's great." We were high-fiving, chest bump. We were like, "How did we get through that?" And then your man goes, "Right, I have one last task for you." "No problem, sure, we're nearly finished, so we'll do anything." "See that peak up there?" And he pointed. We could barely see the peak of the mountain. He goes, "I meet you up there in 3 hours." And up we went on the spot, just start going. And we were already wiped, like. And every team had to carry something. Oh, it's actually hilarious now looking back. So we ran over, obviously grabbed the lightest thing you could find out of the pile. We were carrying like flags and all this stuff. Aidan Mahoney got caught with a 10 kg medicine ball. He had to carry it all the way up. And like, it was an awkward, cumbersome thing. You had to carry it in 2 hands, like all the way up the mountain. He carried it. So it, like, when we were coming back,
that's a man who loves torture.
Comical, you know. It was just so funny, but at the time it was torture.
Yeah.
But no, it was well worth it.
Fitzmaurice said he actually invited the Ranger Ed Holland back then to speak to you later that year to kind of tie it back to those experiences. But he said when the Rangers got you back down after the day, they spoke about the importance of strength and adversity, and highlighted that the lads were exceptional when on task, but also that when they lost focus, they could be very ordinary. So that, I suppose, that is the point of those, is that they prove that as a team, you can get through whatever you can. Paddy, did you ever have any team bonding experiences like that would stand out to you?
Yeah, well, like, we did the exact same for under 21.
Yeah.
Overnight, we did the exact same thing as that. We met in City West, and it was Christmas time. It was between Christmas and New Year's. It was Baltic, but it's under 21 championships beyond January, February. Like, the same thing. We're meeting in City West. It was like, lovely. This is going to be great. And we're brought out to a place called the Glen of Amal. It's an army camp in the middle of nowhere, like, and the exact same thing. We were only 19 and 20 years of age, like, so we were definitely not equipped for this. And lads, it was the exact same torture stuff, crawling through puddles. It was overnight for us, actually. That's what I was asking Jimmy, saying we were knackered, like, torture for the whole day, and then pulled out of bed at about 2:00. And this was like -2 or -3. We'd go out and build a tent together, the whole team. And it was like, even now, that must be 13, 14 years ago. lads still talk about it. That ran that under 21.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. But we actually did it on the next day. So we eventually got about 2 hours kip. Like you're freezing, rattling. Because again, you think you're going to City West for the weekend. Like, and it must have been like 30 for New Year's Eve probably. And then we ended up playing a game on the way back. Like after 36 hours of this, we played DIT and a challenge game, and lads couldn't even move. Like, but I'll never forget it. Like, still exactly what Jimmy's saying. It's something you remember and you talk about because it's so out of the ordinary. Like, like you do things, even I've done it in work where there's away days and things like that, but there's nothing like that type of stuff for sports teams to go on. And the whole premise is like it takes you out of your comfort zone. It forces you into relationships and it forces you into. That's why it was particularly good for us in under 21 team because we didn't know each other really. We were kind of just brought in and it's a short season. We did a couple of things with Dublin on the senior side where you know each other a bit better, but definitely for bringing lads out of their comfort zone and building kind of relationships where you're not going to get that on the training pitch. You can train hard, of course you can, and stuff like that. But those away camps and things like that, they're invaluable to teams. And they're the things you remember mostly. I would say out of more so than any big games we won or even nights out after games and things like that, which generally kind of bond players and stuff like that. The camps that you go on and the trips you went on are really what you remember and you talk about with lads 10 years later, you know. Yeah.
Even at club level, like we had done two like that. We done a kind of an army one up in the Curra one day, and it was actually
horrendous stuff. Jeez.
But it was great, and I would look back. That was the year we won a junior championship, and I would look back and think that was nearly a day that it clicked for us. Like we had an horrendous year up to that. But you're looking around at boys, and you're all kind of pulling together and doing the same thing. And then another year we went on a training weekend up to Donegal, which is class. Like we all forked out for it. Like, and Eamon McGee took a session for us. But you pick up things, and I remember things from the 2 training sessions we did those days, like little tips, because you're getting something different and a different voice. So I know there's a lot of different companies that are running team building.
The biggest thing on it,
worth checking out.
And Jimmy, you said like it's go crack like you do. You're like
you need that.
You're sitting around and you're in the middle of some of this stuff, and you're going, "What in God's name are we at here?" Like totally like fish out of water stuff. And you're just laughing with the lads beside you. Like this, I remember Alan Brogan, we did an army thing. Like he's none of us are made for it, but Alan Brogan definitely isn't made for it. And he was crawling through the woods at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And just into like lads crying, laughing. This is just some images you get from these moments. And it is something that stays with you way more than some of the great scores or great wins you have in Crow Park and things like that. And look, it's part of the journey, I suppose. And it's funny, not many teams talk about it. Yeah, that's why for Fitzy to come out and kind of go into that detail.
He wrote about another year, and I don't know if you were on this one, James, or if you read this far down the article, but he wrote out another year you went to the Blaskets, and you mentioned there the likes of Galvin, Tomas, Scooch, big personalities leaving. Well, this is a year that Jason Foley was first in the squad for the first time, so he's only a kid, like, and you stayed over the weekend in the Blaskets, and Liam Hassett took it upon himself to call everyone up at 5:30 to be ready for sunrise. And for the crack, he wore a child's Halloween mask to give the lads a fright. Most of them were either up already or wise to the gag. But poor Jason was sleeping like a baby and got the fright of frights when he opened his eyes to see this mask a foot from his face. He thought some crowd was after attacking us. So, that's.
But that is unreal to get new fellas involved and into the crack of things. Yeah. Once you're part of a story like that, you're part of the group.
Yeah,
but I think you have to be way more than just a good football team to be kind of challenging for the very biggest prizes. I think you have to be so close. Like you don't have to like each other, but like you have to know each other inside out and be very close and comfortable with each other.
But there are obviously times as well where training camps or training weekends away can backfire, and you mightn't be thinking of this, but 5 days ago, the Irish News broke the story that James McCarthy had actually left the Down County WhatsApp group, and he had told the county board that he was stepping away from his post because they'd gone on a training camp to Dublin, and seemingly the majority of the squad broke the rules and went on the beer that weekend. So McCarthy now has rolled back. The players
to train him. Though, to be fair,
you just wonder now, like Down are obviously in quite a bad place at the minute. McCartan was appointed very late on. He's a legend. He obviously had where Down were when he first took over them in 2010 to where they are now. I'd say he's dealing with a completely different prospect. They've got a couple of the boys back from Kilcoo, but not many. So I don't know whether that's going to bring the Down boys together or further away. But anyways, they sorted it out, I think, midweek. McCartan stayed away for a training session or two, and I think he's been rolled back in. They're playing Monaghan in a couple of weeks. So that is going to be one to keep an eye on. Did that training camp work out for Down?
But that might even go in their favour, because like the players have to go and almost say admit fault there and get the manager back on side, and it might knit them a bit tighter.
Maybe.
You know? Like even a bad thing coming out of a group, if you fix it, is now a positive.
Yeah.
You know? But like I just think the crack out of those training camps is something else. But we went and I forget which trip it was now. I think it was Johnstown House we went. And we had a load of new fellas in. So what we all had to do was put in Peter Crowley and Johnny Buckley were over the punishment committee. Everything we did was ruled with fear around this time of a punishment. But
torture. It's just all you did.
Just torture. Yeah. So we had to put in a punishment each. So you had to think of something and put into a hat. And at the end of the day, do you remember when Zebo had to throw that thing to the Munster Rugby crowd?
Yeah. Oh, it was Lions. Like it was the Lions thing.
Or on the Lions trip.
He had to ring Van Gran and ask him to. So that was it. He lost whatever it was. The forfeit was it wasn't Van Gran. It was somebody else. Ring the Munster coach, Rob Penny, and ask him to be captain. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it was like that. So he did something on the week. Someone would do something during the week. You'd have to put your hand in, instead of rolling a ball, you put your hand in and pick out a punishment that anybody could have written. And then if you pulled out your own, you had to do your own and you have to go again. So if you pulled your own, you were rightly goose. I stayed in the room for the week anyway, just in case I was going to have to do something. But Cahill Long, who was actually on the London panel, he wasn't actually playing this week. I'm not sure why, but he was on the London panel, but he was only new into the panel. He was kind of quiet and finding his feet. Did something anyway. I forget what he did. Had to put his hand in. So he pulled out the thing. And what we were doing was we were all eating dinner in one room and the management were in another room, kind of down the hall a bit in a smaller room. So we had to go down and eat dinner. No, one too bad. No, but he had to go and eat dinner with the management. He was only in now about a fortnight without saying a word and without his knife and fork. So he went in and he wasn't allowed actually have eye contact with anyone either, I don't think. So he put his plate in, went into Eamon and Hassett and a few more, sat down, no knife and fork. I think it was like casserole or something we were eating as well, like something pure, sloppy and messy. And had to eat it with his fingers. Yeah, it was. He had to eat it with his fingers. And he lasted about 20 minutes in there and they were like, this fella is not right at all. Like, what is going on?
The boys in it. Fitzmaurice and them know what was happening.
It was only players thing. So he was absolutely devastated when he pulled it out. And he lasted about 20 minutes. And Fitzmaurice just came into us afterwards and just started shaking his head and was like, "You fuckers." Those kind of funny stories are they're worth it.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Your man, tell me your man stayed on the panel for the championship. Surely.
He did, yeah. He was around for the year, yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't drop him after that. Like.
Yeah, no, it was great.
That's better than 10 good weeks of training for him. The lads wouldn't let him know.
Yeah. Fact. No, he was good sport for it.
Right. Let's run through the results very quickly. We had three games in the championship. On Saturday evening, Tyrone held off Kieran Donnelly's Fermanagh 217 to 210. And we're going to get into analysis of that in just a moment. And then on Sunday, in the Conor quarterfinals, we had Leitrim 312, London 211. Leitrim were actually 8 points up in this game with 10 minutes to go. And London nearly pulled off the comebacks of all comebacks. They got two late goals. One of them was a cracker, like a soccer shot into the top corner. And they scored a point to put a point between it. They had a couple of chances to equalise it. Emlyn Mulligan was brought on, and within, I think there was 6 minutes of injury time, and Andy Moran threw in Emlyn Mulligan. Mulligan actually ended up making an interception on the full back line. And then a minute or two later, I don't know. A minute or two later, Leitrim broke and Ryan O'Rourke buried the kind of game-winning goal. So the 1-4, relief all around. So we'll chat about that in a little while. And then the final game of the weekend over in Gaelic Park. Brilliant scenes. Sligo 116, New York 15 points. Not many people had given New York much of hope coming into this week. We didn't really know what they were going to bring to the table. Very, very, very enjoyable game of football. New York had some savage footballers on show. And a couple of frees from Niall Murphy in injury time kind of dragged Sligo over the line. New York actually had a chance to equalise it again. They had drawn at level a couple minutes ago, had another chance in injury time to hit the post. Niall Medine from down hit the post, and Sligo again pulled away at 1-4. So that was the games this weekend. We're going to be talking about them in a moment. We're going to look ahead to some of the big games next weekend. We're going to take some of your questions from the Football Pod listeners a little later. And we're also going to be picking Paddy Andrews' team for his Fantasy Gaelic team. So if you haven't joined already, go join the Fantasy Football League for the Football Pod here. So I will tweet out the link. I will tweet out the code afterwards. So you can check us out at footballpod_GAA. All you have to do is log on to the Fantasy Gaelic Championship website. That'll bring you in. You can sign up. It's a tenner to sign up, but the money goes to the Own Rua GA club. So it's like their fundraiser. It's like all different clubs, so many different fundraisers these days. It's a great idea. Everyone can play along. We all get a bit of crack out of it. And the proceeds go to their underage hurling development. And I think the football development up there. And they put up cash prizes too. We'll be putting up a couple of prizes. We had our top 3 last week that we revealed, and I'll be sending out those prizes very soon to the 3 winners. So join our league. We'll be chatting about it every week. Have the crack with us. You are listening to episode 13 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. We're going to be back right after these, talking Tyrone. You're very welcome back to episode 13 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. Boys, Saturday night, the All-Ireland champions were in action. We've been asking lots of questions of them. James O'Donoghue christened them relegation candidates at the very start on his very first pod. James, were you impressed this time around watching them in action on Saturday evening?
I was, but very hard to read into that game. They're playing, decent enough football, but at the same time, they're playing a Division 3 team. They need to seriously up it. I know they got kind of good reviews on the Sunday game last night, but I don't know, would I agree with it? Their big players need to play well. We know that, and they are. But they looked open at the back, which was something that was kind of surprising. Fermanagh got 2 goals. Yeah. They could have easily got 2 more. At least. Yeah. And if there's a team who have a couple of weeks, probably a fortnight is what you're going to get. If someone has a proper Division 1 team has a fortnight to assess a Tyrone, they'll be able to pick those holes in them. So I think that if Tyrone are to go forward, they're going to need to fill those holes in defence, because they seem to have it nailed going forward, especially with the midfield contributing now so well to attack. But they need to get those goal chances out of their game. Because
the second Fermanagh goal, it's a lovely bit of quick thinking from Sean Quigley, and there's probably not many footballers in the country who pulls that off. But how do you get away with that in an Ulster Championship game?
Frank Burns asleep at the wheel there, for both the goals. I think he's a really good player, but on the defensive side of things, the same with the first goal as well. Just way too easy. But I think Tyrone's first half display was just totally lacking energy. Like, Fermanagh were good, to be fair to them. Right? Like, Fermanagh brought a lot to the game. They kind of mixed it up well. They were delivering some direct ball inside into Quigley and the guys, and looked dangerous inside. But they started causing Tyrone a lot of trouble as well when they're running the ball at them. So it looked like Conor Jones he scores a goal in the second half, but he has an unbelievable chance in the first half where he kind of just panics, and you're thinking, I actually thought he'd kicked it wide at first. I was like, Jesus Christ, he's had a howler here. But it's literally just settled the nerves and just pop a ball across the goal. The young lad, the wing forward, Largo Ellis, I know he gets a goal as well, but a few minutes before that, exact same thing. Yeah. He kind of butchers the left-handed hand pass across.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do, but just badly executed. But it was kind of, if you're looking at how is that happening to Tyrone? Because I don't think they're that bad defensively. You look at their display last year and kind of shutting Kerry down in the semi-final, closing off the space. It's a real communal effort. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of organisation to set up that defensive structure. And you only really get that when they're all mentally switched on. And they weren't on Saturday night. And I've played in games like that where you know you're going to win this game. And that's no disrespect to Fermanagh. Tyrone were never going to lose that game. And you got the sense of that in the first half. You could see it in their play. It was just flat across the board. I thought Myler was good, was excellent. He kind of took the fight to Fermanagh in the first half. McCurdy was quiet in the first quarter, but kind of kicked into gear as well. And Kilpatrick was very good again. Those 3 players kind of got Tyrone through the first half, and then in the second half, McKenna's introduction
made a difference.
A massive difference, but it was just a bit of a spark, and there was energy there. And I'd say they got told a few home truths at half time as well. because the difference in energy and tempo. Now, look, Fermanagh probably tired a little bit as well, but Tyrone blew them away in the second half, and that's what you expected from Tyrone from the get-go. But how porous they were defensively, I think, was a little bit of complacency across the defenders. Like I said, it's the second goal is a clear example of that. The game's over. There's 4 lads having a chat with Joe McQuillan for some reason.
Yeah.
And the ball's just popped to Conor Jones to roll it into the net. So, look, there was definitely things they'll take to work on that. They're obviously missing Peter Hart and Matty Donnelly, who we know they weren't going to risk in a game like that. We know how important they are for the Derry match. But they'll need to improve massively from where they were at, because the next game they have in 2 weeks' time is a massive step up from Fermanagh and what they're going to get from Derry. And basically, it's just going to keep going up and up and up if they go through the Ulster Championship into the All-Ireland Series. So, some positives. McKenna's intro was a positive, but then you look at what happens at the end. Is he going to be missing for the Derry game? I'm sure they're going to appeal that one, but kind of.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Yeah, that's an interesting one. You reckon there might have been reared on at half time. You could definitely hear the Tyrone management and coaching staff shouting them on in the first half, trying to add a bit more energy into it. Like, can it be? It strikes me that you never struggled to get up for those early Leinster Championship games. Like Carlo really put it up to you one year, but you seem to always turn it on. There was a couple of pacings you handed out across the years too.
Yeah, and again, that wasn't really coming from the management. That was kind of coming from the squad. That if whoever was named in the first 15 for this game, you basically had 9 or 10 lads itching on the bench to kind of get in, and there'd be lads that would have been pissed off that they weren't playing. So that put pressure. I would have played a lot of those games from the start and would have felt pressure to perform, even if we're winning this game by 20 points, which in some cases we were. You still had to keep doing the right things. You still had to be flat to the mat. And that's the beauty of the squad, I'd say. And maybe that could be an issue for Tyrone. We touched on it last week that they're missing some of those players. But I can kind of, you could just see that the difference between the first half and the second half, like Fermanagh running through Tyrone, just guys not tracking runners, guys just completely switching off. It was a lackadaisical first half performance.
Yes.
And then the minute Tyrone turned it on, they showed their class and they completely blew Fermanagh out of the water in the second half. So it's not the worst thing in the world. It kind of gives Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher a bit of a stick to beat the lads with going into the Derry game, to go, look, we seen how poor we were in the first half. You do that against better teams than Fermanagh, you'll be in serious trouble. Like the fact that Myler's goal kind of got them out of jail and they went in a point up at half time.
You can see Myler's,
they probably should have been behind at half time.
They were 3 down after 23 minutes, and you could just see Myler's celebration. Like it was a great goal. Like he made a brilliant run, nice little finish, but there was a bite in the celebration. It was nearly like a statement, like he was roaring back to the rest of his teammates. To
be fair to him, he kind of carried it the whole way through the first half. He was kind of driving forward. Like I said, McCurry was quiet enough in the first quarter, but then kind of kicked into gear. The McShane thing, lads, I know he finished well, maybe he clipped 3 points over the course of the game. He's still nowhere near the form he's at. And I can see Tyrone are trying to force him into form, which at times you kind of just have to do. You have to play him and just keep playing. It's going to click at some stage. They know the quality's there, but again, first half in particular, I thought he struggled again. And really was McKenna's intro, to be fair, who's had a really quiet season to date. He came on and was the spark for everything. It was just, there was an energy there now. There was purpose in their attack. You know, he's the chip up and he kind of goes for goal and gets blocked down to get a point out of it. He creates the first goal with a shot off the post. It was just that energy, and all of a sudden Tyrone were running with purpose and they were overrunning Fermanagh. And he brought that through in the second half. And that's when it kind of opened up and Tyrone could kind of ease into the game. But that first half display was just nowhere near the level from Tyrone. They'll know that themselves.
Yeah.
I think the lads, to be fair, the analysis was pretty damning of that in the first half as well. You know, it was pretty obvious. You could see it. Their energy on kickouts, conceding short kickouts. Again, second half, they just pushed up and said, no, scrap that.
Derry will be looking on, licking their lips and ways. James McKenna, he came back, I think it was when the GA first came back after 2020, he came back from Australia. And I think it was a game against Kerry. himself and Canavan had a real connection that day, and it kind of sparked to life. In that, I think it was that league before the championship, back then in late 2020, and we were all really excited about Conor McKenna and what he could bring. And then last year's All-Ireland, he was coming in off the bench, and he was making an impact when he was coming in.
Yeah,
a huge contribution in the All-Ireland final. How would you get the best out of a fellow like Conor McKenna?
Well, I think he's an excellent player, right? But he seems to be kind of caught at the moment because they're trying to get McShane right. And I don't think you can start the two of them. I think that's maybe what they're thinking. That at the moment, between the two of them, do they have enough legs inside there to do the damage? McCurry is going to be guaranteed. Canavan's looking like he's going to be guaranteed. So it's one of the two. In terms of getting the best from him, I mean, I thought he was outstanding when he came on at the weekend because he injected the pace. You could see when for the goal attempt that was knocked in, he just got it in a bit of space. They stepped off him. He pinged it inside and he was gone again. He just looked sharp. He looked like he wanted it. He looked like he had something inside him. He wanted to prove a point. Now, the thing is, sometimes when you're that good coming off the bench, you can almost pigeonhole into a substitute's position because you can inject that. But if I was the Tyrone management, I'd be looking at starting him because I think he does have something different.
Where would you put him?
Ball winner.
Would he be an 11 for you?
No, I'd play him inside. He kind of roams a bit anyway when he's there, doesn't he? And he comes out, he can contest kickouts from there. Whether I play him 11, yeah, you could, but I think he's better inside. He was playing 15 last year, wasn't he? Like he did well.
If you see what they're trying to do with McShane and McCurry to keep inside the 21, and Derek Hannivan's kind of coming out and playing around the top of the D, and that nearly suits his game. He'll be the first receiver from kicks from midfield, and then he can jink, and he's very elusive and pop the ball inside. I like McKenna around the middle.
Yes,
I think Kilpatrick and Kennedy are going to be their guys for midfield, so you'll probably end up probably playing them at 11. I know they had Michael O'Neill starting at 11 and coming back. Didn't really work out at the weekend. Not a great start with the black card, and then taken off at halftime for McKenna. So it is a tricky one for Tyrone because they've seen the value of energy off the bench. Most certainly last year in getting them over the line and winning the All-Ireland. We've all spoke about it, particularly modern GAA. You need to have that impetus coming in around the 45, 50-minute mark. McShane was brilliant at it last year for Tyrone. That's the challenge they're going to have by losing some of those guys over the last couple of months. But
like behind McKenna on the bench, you have Michael Conroy coming on, kicking his first championship score. You have Brian Kennedy coming on. You've Connor Shields coming on, who's a defender. You've Ben McDonald coming in, Liam Rafferty. Like it's
no X factor there, I feel.
After McKenna, there wasn't. And like you did mention,
Canavan was that X factor.
And McShane.
Yeah.
Last year, so like.
I think the biggest thing, the positive for Tyrone from it is the form he brought in. It was a brilliant 35-minute display. Drawback is obviously, can they get him off for the Derry match?
But I mean, they're playing Division 3 team as well, Paddy. Like, it's hard to read into that game too much. They're talking about, fair enough, they're playing a Division 3 team. The intensity, even in the first half, isn't going to be that high. Never mind the second half, it's going to almost die off completely. So
but for McKenna, James, he hadn't shown anything year to date, all through the National League, and he played some of these games, started a couple, and then was coming off the bench, and there was nothing happening for him. And you're kind of thinking, Jesus, what's the story here? So for him to just get any sort of positive impact, and it was really positive. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
That's a positive for him. They got through the game with Peter Hart and Matty Donnelly. We don't know their time frame. I'm sure they're going to be looking to get those two boys back for the game against Kerry. So that's a positive side of it as well. McCurry's kind of carried on where he left off last season, so he's flying it. But there's definitely issues there that they can nearly use to the positive. Lads, don't be getting complacent. You're not. We used to always think you're not good enough to be complacent. If you drop your standard, someone's going to catch you. And that with Tyrone, particularly in the Ulster Championship, if they perform like they did in the first half against Derry, might get away with against Derry, but then they're going to play Monaghan in a semi-final. They will not win that championship with a display like they gave in the first 35 minutes. So that can nearly be a good thing for a team, for coaches to kind of say it's a kick in the hole for everyone. But the job well done. They're true. as we expected. But
does it change? Bodie, you nailed your colours to the mast, the Ulster Championship predictions last week. Does it change? Would Tyrone's performance in any way alter what you're predicting? No.
James? I don't think so.
Not yet. Okay.
Like with Tyrone, for those 2 goals to go in, especially, I think was a good thing for them. Because if they'd coasted to, I think they were up 12 points at one stage. If they'd coasted to a 15-point win, they'd all be tapping each other on the back. No, they probably wouldn't, but they'd be half thinking in the back of their head, we did quite well there. Whereas now, because the 2 goals went in and they were so soft, they're questioning each other and they're going, that wasn't good enough. So it actually will bring a bit more of a spark in training. Okay. So sometimes an easy win like that can soften you. Just a bit of a question mark is good for them going into that Derry game.
Agreed.
Looking briefly at the Tailteann Cup, we haven't got any. We won't have any fixtures for that for another little while, and the makeup will make itself clear as the games go on. Like we mentioned last week in Munster, if Tipperary happen to get to the Munster final, Waterford will be the only team from Munster in the Tailteann Cup. So it'll be interesting to see what teams end up there. Would Fermanagh, like any of New, like let's take for granted that the big teams get through in Connacht. Would Sligo, Leitrim, Fermanagh, London, New York, any of those teams, would they have impressed you enough to say that they might give this Tailteann Cup a rattle? Paddy, Fermanagh show you anything yesterday?
Yeah, I thought the first half display was positive. I think their full forward line are guys that can score. That's half the battle. I thought they brought the game to Tyrone quite well in the first half. There was good variety in their play. Like I said, their athleticism, the running game, but then they mixed it up quite well with their kicking game as well. Ryan Jones kicking some lovely scores. Conor Jones, obviously, despite the bit of a haymaker in the first half, takes his goal really well in the second half. There's enough there from Fermanagh, and it won't just be Fermanagh. You'll see this over the next couple of weeks. The Tailteann Cup will be a really, really competitive competition because it's linked to that league placings, or Division 3 and 4 teams, which are unbelievably competitive divisions through the spring. And you're going to see that. And the positive aspect for teams and the whole idea behind it is they're not going to be waiting 6 weeks or 2 months till they play their next game. It's going to be run in conjunction with the senior championship, that it allows teams to build momentum. And that, okay, Fermanagh are going to be disappointed with that second half performance, but they can regroup over the next couple of weeks and then they roll into the Tailteann Cup and get games in a shorter space of time where they're able to kind of take things through. So I think it's going to be really open, and that's the point of it, and that's what you want, that it is going to be unpredictable, but I think they'll have a massive say in it,
It'll be great to see New York getting a second outing, because it's been a long time since, I don't know if they've ever had a second championship game, but it'd be great to see that. Obviously a number of Irish-American or American-Irish born players. You had Johnny Glynn togging out for them. Man,
Barley as well, kicking scores as well.
Johnny Glynn talks out bigger in a football jersey, I'm telling you. Like the marks that he fetched in that first half, the New York keepers just targeting him with them. Like, so yeah, Sligo came through that game. Sean Carabine, who had got his red card overturned, had a massive impact in that game, especially in the first half when New York were really kind of pushing Sligo. Carabine scored a brilliant goal. Pat O'Connor played well, and Niall Murphy kicked a couple of points as well. And then with Leitrim, Andy Moran would have been sweating. We should have had a manager cam on Andy. Paddy, I know you wanted to get over this game this week. They did it this week without Keith Byrne, who was the second top scorer in the league this year. Afterwards, I thought it was quite interesting. Andy was speaking to Maura Trostny Kelly, and not because he's a Mayo man, but he wants Mayo to beat Galway next weekend because he wants to play them in Carrick and Shannon. So if Galway win, Leitrim will be playing Galway in the Connacht semi-final. If Mayo win, they'll be going down to Carrick. And Andy thinks that, I don't know what he thinks, but, obviously we had witnessed that pasting on national television that Mayo gave Leitrim last year. There's obviously a huge carrot there to try and improve on that this year again.
Yeah, Anna tell me, and that's why, look, traditionally you're expecting Sligo to beat New York and Leitrim to beat London. That's kind of the history of the championship, that those teams are always going to struggle to pick up wins, and for Leitrim and Sligo, with the tradition they have, they should be winning those games. But realistically, I remember chatting with Andy about this, and people asked me about it last year when he's kind of taken the Leitrim job. And for Tony McEntee in Sligo as well. So Tony McEntee, unbelievable success with Cross McGlenn, and then involved with Mayo in some of their Connacht titles and All Ireland finals against us. They're unbelievably driven and successful players in their own right. They know the game inside out, and you're thinking they are hard jobs to take on. That you could go in where Leitrim and Sligo were respectively. And you could be a brilliant coach. You could get the absolute maximum out of the players that are at your disposal. And you might not win a game over the course of that season. You could play Mayo in the first round of the championship. You play Galway in the first round of the championship. And you're getting a big beating. And all the work you've put in, what does success look like? It's very hard for coaches to go in, coming from environments that they were in, competing for All Irelands, to go in and do loads of brilliant work. But if you're in the public just looking at it going, well, they were hammered there in that game. What have they done? And it's a very hard way to be judged. So those 2 games at the weekend and their performances through Division 4 in the National League, there is progress there. There's tangible reward. You can see the work Andy is doing with Leitrim. You can see the work Tony McAtee's done with Sligo. That they picked up wins, narrowly miss out on Division 4 promotion, but win those 2 championship games. And now they go in. And you're right. We all watched that game, the Sunday game last year. 24-point defeat for Leitrim in Castlebar. Sligo, I think, looking at the score here, actually with it down before it, they were beaten by 20 points by Mayo in Markovich Park. The year before, they don't even play in the championship through the COVID. And the year before, Roscommon beat them by 13 points. These 2 counties have not had anything to shout about over the last 5 or 6 years. So for them to pick up those wins, one throughout the spring in the National League and win 3 or 4 games and win those 2 games yesterday and get a championship win under the belt, that is progress for the work that is going on in Leitrim under Andy and his coaching team and with Tony and what he's doing in Sligo as well. And there's massive respect due for that. They'll be up against it in their semi-finals, whoever they play.
Yeah.
But they now might have momentum going in from what they've done into a Tailteann Cup that we're hoping is going to does what it says in the tin and promote big championship games in the summer for these counties.
I think home advantage will be a massive thing there, whatever way it goes. Like, it was interesting. Obviously, the Cork-Kerry saga is rumbling on. The Sligo 20s this week, they actually threatened to boycott their under-20 championship Connacht game this week against Mayo because the Connacht Council had fixed the game for the Connacht Centre of Excellence, which is in Mayo. But Sligo made the point that the last time these 2 played in 2019, it was in Castlebar. So they were not playing this game unless it was in Markovich Park. And the Connacht Council wrote back this evening and said that the game is going to be in Sligo this year. So home advantage, massive for these counties. Like, we were getting tagged in videos this weekend from the Leitrim Ultras, over in London.
Did they make it home in one piece?
Singing. Well, actually, they joined me and Dahi Regan on GA Late Night last night, our phone-in show. So we had a chat with a few of them.
That was last night, Tommy. Where are they today?
I don't know. So hopefully we'll hear from them and hear that they made it back. It was Conor and Ryan Higgins that was sending us on the videos. So thanks for keeping us in on that. But I remember speaking before about, developing a fan culture. I had a chat with a fella before, but how the GA could possibly develop a fan culture, where teams are traveling to matches or fans are traveling to matches on buses, and not even in the Premier League sense, but like those away day trips. And I just think that if the league championship maybe one day was brought in, you might see that. If it was summertime, you're hopping on a bus to go down to Carrick-on-Shannon to watch a competitive championship match, you bring a heap of people on. It'd be unbelievable, like. And you'd have all these songs and the chanting going as well. So maybe we'll see a bit more of that. Those games will bring those crowds, Tommy, if they're competitive games. 100%.
Like,
that's what I think the Tailteann Cup, it could be a huge success. Like, if the supporters get on board with it and they know how much work the Leitrims and Sligos have put in, that they go and they back their team, like, it could be a big success.
But the coverage has to be there as well. Like why on earth was London Leitrim not streamed this weekend? Why not put it on show? Do you know?
Yeah.
Give it 3 minutes. I'm not blaming the Sunday game for saying this, because they are a show that have to try and show, like, 2 hours of an hour and a half, 2 hours to show how many games every weekend. I don't know how they're going to do it next week with like 9 football games and 6 hurling games. But like, why wasn't it streamed? Like, I just don't understand. And if the Tailteann Cup is going to be a success, you have to put these games on. Let people pay for it. Go and watch the game if you want to watch it, or pay for it to watch it afterwards. Then we can go and analyze it properly as well. So I just think that's a big point and one worth making. I think as we're going along, I'd like to get a rating off you of how you think a team is going to go in the Tailteann Cup. So we'll park Fermanagh, London and Leitrim until we get their fixtures and see who they're up against next. But I think that'd be a way of doing it. We might try and rank them and see how they're getting on as the Tailteann Cup goes along. So those fixtures
be interesting to see if the league positions has a direct correlation, in terms of if
100%.
third in Division 3 or the relegated Division 2 team comes out and wins it.
Who technically should be favourites?
Like Offaly
were relegated and down.
Yeah, but down to fall to pieces now with the management. You think
they only just staff the rights out and Coppers?
I would say if Tip don't make the Munster final, Tip have a fair shout.
Yes.
You know, I would say possibly Cavan have a fair shout, and I would also say Westmeath do quite a poor league campaign. I would back Westmeath as the type of team that could turn it on because they've players like John Heston and boys that have done it before over the last decade or so. They might turn it on in Tailteann Cup. So
but just
when you go through games like that in the summer, Saturday nights, there could be some brilliant games. Genuinely, there could be big crowds at it, and the player is getting reward for the work they've put in year to date. That you get 15,000 or 20,000 there in these provincial grounds. I think it could be massive. That's why it's been brought in. So it's hopefully not a great start in terms of coverage for smaller counties from the weekend, but look, hopefully it's done right over the next couple of months, and it is a success because the players deserve it, and the coaches, everyone involved in those setups deserves it.
O'Rourke was writing this weekend about America beckoning for the counties in the Tailteann Cup, and I'm going to have to go looking for this tweet now because it was absolutely genius. It was about 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to go look for it and get your man's name. He was based in Vancouver, and he said, "Lads, stop bloody tweeting me." He goes, "My DMs are full of boys asking me to bring me over to Vancouver. I wouldn't mind if they were all David Cliffords, but they're not." I just thought it was very funny. Your man getting plagued, looking for accommodation, a job, and a bit of football in the summer. You never went over and played. I somehow snaked my way over to play for Mayo Boston in 2012. The club folded the following year. I don't know whether that's because they were bringing out boys like me.
Too much quid on you. That's what happens.
I didn't get paid anything. I didn't even get sorted with a job. I had to get my own job after about 3 weeks when I ran out of money. But I played a bit of football that summer in Boston. I told you, James Forget, about getting roasted from a fella in Killarney.
Tony Braston.
It wasn't Tony Braston. No, it wasn't.
Oh, it was John Payne.
It wasn't. I'll tell you his name now. Chris.
Oh, Chris Brady.
Chris Brady absolutely roasted me. I am not a cornerback, and I was put cornerback marking Chris Brady. And I'm fairly sure he was out the night beforehand, and he took me to the game.
Has an All-Ireland club and about 6 county championships.
He's from Crokes, yeah. I realized that afterwards when I was chatting to him. But yeah, not I didn't.
I was supposed to go to Boston, I think 2010. Myself and Jonathan Lyne, yeah, and we made the Kerry panel. We didn't even know. We were in training, but we were only 2 Joe Soaps, and we checked the Kerry GA website on the Thursday night. We're supposed to be going on the Sunday or the Monday. On the Thursday night.
Oh, you'd
agree making the panel, 29 and 30 on the panel. And oh my God, we'd already sent over our buddy, Jamie Sullivan, was already over there waiting for us. And we had to ring him and say, "We're not coming." Oh, it was absolutely priceless. All we were worried about really was who was number 29 and who was 30. And who got the better jersey? Lino got the 29. All right, he still holds that over me.
What club were you supposed to go over to?
Kerry Boston, I'd say.
Okay.
I think anyway. It was a long time ago now, 10 years. We were negotiating with a few. We were on to New York as well.
I believe it.
Funny. It's just funny.
The price up, like.
Yeah. The New Yorker are offering another 500. You'll have to put it on.
Paddy,
you'd love to go.
You never tapped up for a bit of football stateside, were you?
I think I was meant to go 1 year and I was stopped from going. And to be honest, all things considered, that was probably the best thing for me.
The wolf on the loose in New York would have been dangerous.
In my late teens in New York or Boston, I would have been under pressure over there, I'd say. Yeah. There might be no football pod, lads. What might have been.
Did you ever talk to Connolly about his sojourn in Boston? Did he enjoy it?
He did enjoy it, yeah. Which is surprising. Could have went either way for him, to be fair, but he played unbelievable. They won it both years, I think.
I think so.
It was Donegal Boston, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely lording it, yeah. That was in his prime as well. It was like he should not have been over there.
What age was he when he went over?
That was outrageous, lads.
28 or 29.
What?
Yeah, like Conley. he was different gravy playing in All Ireland championship matches in Croke Park at that time.
After there was videos of him in Canton and Boston, and it was just he's just completely.
We were seeing the clips because we were playing the same day. We're like, it would have been nice if he was here playing against.
Was there when he was brought back in? Then was there no kind of issues with that? Was there a clamour to bring him back? We all think get this man back in the door because he obviously had a big impact that year.
Tyrone, just he wanted to come back, come back. He didn't. He just kind of the whole idea. And I don't know if I've spoken this before, like, but the way coaches will always come in and be like, we're treating you all the exact same, and you're going, yeah, no, I get that, but there are some players who are just different.
Yeah,
Cantona.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cantona and Ferguson is like a prime example of that, and that was what Dermot was like with us. It's like if he was coming back, brilliant. We'd look out for him. We cared about him, and if he wasn't coming back, once he was happy out doing what he's doing, that was the main thing. So between himself and there was a few lads that kind of retired 2 or 3 times, but I remember seeing the clips. We'd be on the team bus after playing Mayo or Kerry and Croker, and Dermot was like backheeling balls over the bar in Boston. I was going like some boy out, yeah.
It was bad enough getting roasted by Chris Brady. I wouldn't know. Want to
yeah,
see
it's a poor fella's gone over Mark. Would have been a raw deal.
So I'm the only person on this pod that hasn't been played in the full back line. And we're 3 full forward line players.
Well, it was 13 aside. Was I full back? Yeah, probably was full back. I could have been 6 actually. It was 13 aside, but yeah, it was in defence. Yeah,
I played back there, Jimmy.
Certainly
not. Targeting you with the high ball.
Have you ever been pushed? Obviously you weren't put in midfield. I was midfield a lot growing up, and wing back. You've never been pushed back at all.
10 or 12, I'd say, was as far back as I went.
And that was only punishment, I'd say.
That was
only because I couldn't make 13, 14 or 15. No. I couldn't catch it over my head, sure. I don't have to fist it on.
Fair, true.
That was just your shoulders, though, or was that always as a child?
It was just disguised by a shoulder injury.
Only a little fella. Look,
put it in low.
I can't find the fella who tweeted that about Cliff from Vancouver. I'll tweet it during the week. Okay, Mayo Galway. Going to be on at McHale Park. David Coldrick is confirmed as the referee.
Great ref.
Donegal Armagh is going to be on at McCool Park in Ballybuffet. Maurice Deegan is confirmed as the referee.
What a great ref.
Joe McQuillan hit the headlines this weekend for obviously sending off Conor McKenna. We presume it was because he was technically the third man in, as he got the head pulled off him, the jersey pulled off him, and was flattened on the ground. McKenna somehow was the man sent off. It was because we think, James, he was the third man in. As somebody who is accustomed to seeing cards flashed at them at Gaelic in GA recently.
You can't talk about this.
Okay, Paddy, do you think it was harsh on Conor McKenna?
Yeah, it was harsh. He shouldn't have been sent off.
Yeah.
Like how... I presume it's for the third man in, and it's contributing to a melee, which has gotten so much airtime, that saying, over the last couple of months. But
yeah,
Conor Kilpatrick's on the deck. McKenna is going in. There's 2 or 3 Fermanagh lads on Conor Kilpatrick, and he's on the ground. So McKenna's going in being a sound teammate and pushing them off. Doesn't raise his fists, doesn't come in swinging, lashing out, literally just pulling the Fermanagh guys off Kilpatrick. He then gets headlocked and nearly like a DDT onto the ground, has the top ripped off him, and he's the only guy that gets a red card out of that. I don't think that's right. I think the reaction across the board has kind of shown that it's not great. I think Tyrone will appeal this one. I think they might be out of favour after the Fermanagh or the Armagh row they're on in the spring. And even for Joe McQuillan, really experienced ref, he's seen his fair share of this stuff. Like, the game was over. Like, does he need that hassle? If he flashes yellow cards to everyone there, nobody bats an eyelid and you get on with it. It wasn't a serious melee. We still don't want to see it, and I understand why, but I think it's harsh for Conor McKenna if he was going to miss that game against Derry in a couple of weeks' time because of that.
I agree. Fergal Logan has confirmed that they will be appealing it. He was also wondering, why did they need to send someone off? Could they not have just reviewed it on footage afterwards and dished it out if there's any issues? But he was also asking the question, does there not have to be an allowance that you can protect your teammate? Which is what McKenna was doing. Now, in a way,
every coach, Tommy, will say that to you. Every team I've been involved in, if there's a row, you come in and protect your teammates. You don't throw boots, you don't throw your heads, you don't throw punches, but you come in and get your teammates out of there or get them off. If there's 3 lads and if I'm on the ground and there's 3 lads on top of me, I'd be hoping for one of my teammates to come in and give me a bit of a dig out. Not by swinging reckless things around like that. That's not what McKenna did. So,
but there's a saying that we on air. There's a saying that we have is go to the point of fighting without fighting if you're protecting a fella. Do you know, like you have to go in with some sort of force, but you can't actually throw a punch or anything like that, which is what he did in fairness to him. But the bigger issue is if a player is turned over attacking, right?
Yeah.
Say he overcarries the ball like Kilpatrick did.
Mm-hmm.
The whistle's blown. He can be absolutely savaged on the ground to get that ball back. It's ridiculous. They can do whatever he wants because he's overcarried it. Like they basically stuck their hand in his face, ripped the ball, pinned him down.
He got a knee in the back.
Yeah, and what's he doing? What's every Tyrone player expected to do then? Go, lads, thanks, work away. You know, that's not going to happen. So until they stop that, that's the initial cause. And then whatever happens
that's
after
starting
that.
The melee.
Exactly.
Never mind McKenna coming in. There's no melee if the lads aren't acting the absolute fuckers on the ground.
But that is the way. If there's a turnover, every single defense is going to do it. Yeah.
Well, Logan, who's a very well respected solicitor as well, said it's fair to say I've been deeply involved in the GA disciplinary processes for a long number of years now, and I've seen virtually every angle of it. And I can tell you, it's causing a lot of difficulty this position in terms of contributing to a melee. I know Armagh are in pursuit of it at the moment. McQuillan had a very difficult job out there and he did very well, but ultimately on a football field, when a player isn't contributing to a melee and he's simply looking to the safety of his own teammate or to the safety of others, we have to look at it. And I firmly believe that Conor was looking to the safety of his own teammate there. And that's why he jumped in. So and that I think...
If I was Conor Patrick and McKenna didn't go in, I'd be having words with him.
There's a serious problem there.
Four man of lads on me and you're standing there looking at them. What's the crack? So...
But this contributing
should get off for the Derry match.
Yeah, hopefully.
But this contributing to a melee is just an umbrella term that goes in the referee's report that basically says he can send off anyone who's involved. And to be involved, what does that mean? That you're just there? Like it doesn't actually mean you've done anything specific. It just means that you're around that area and you're contributing to that melee. So off you go. It's very vague.
Did you contribute to melee a couple of weeks ago? Or you started the whole thing?
No, it was the referee who was the third man in getting pushed around, wasn't it?
But they
you taking out our four fellas first.
The referee was the third man in. He was rushing to give James the card.
You thrown 4 digs in 10 seconds.
No, it wasn't. It was just the one. It was the one.
A one dig. Just one dig.
It was a push.
It was a half. Yeah.
Oh, push. Sorry.
But
they can put in their report, Tommy, striking or contributing to melee. So contributing to melee is less.
So easy to put it in,
Yeah, exactly. So if they say striking, they can poke holes in that and it can be overturned.
Yeah.
Whereas contributing to melee, how can you even
so why
appeal that? Because there's so many things that can happen.
Like we do not want to see
these. Off here, lads.
Yeah, well, hopefully he does. But I think we are seeing too many of these incidents. Like we are seeing too many of them. But I think at county level, I don't know whether you agree or not. Unless you are absolutely sure, just allow the video evidence afterwards to actually just there's so many cameras. At club level, you might have to flash a couple of reds, but in a county level, go and if there's somebody who's struck, if there's somebody who's thrown a boy in a headlock or done something dangerous, ban him afterwards.
That's what they did with the Armagh Donegal game at the end of the National League. They just let it go for about 30 minutes. They were looking at it and go, right, we'll watch this and we'll name names after.
But the game was over as well that day, you say.
Yeah, it's easier. It's easier then, isn't it?
For Joe McQuillan in that game at the weekend, game's over as well. What, a minute left?
Yeah.
You're going, you don't need this. And the fact that he went around and then gave yellow cards to the other lads, you're like, Jesus, Joe, can of worms here. Just give them all yellows and nobody would bat an eyelid across the board for anyone. So
I think we can look. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the AFL, right? But we can look here, I think, for in a way because
Eamon Murray there.
Who's that?
Me, ladies manager. Hear his comments last week. Jesus
what did he say again? It was a horrible sport.
Did you see his comments last week?
No, was it Vicky
Wally? The entire AFL under the bus. It was like, because Vicky Wallace after signing. And he came out.
What does she want to be going over there for? Yeah,
this game is a load of nonsense. There's no skill. It's a disgrace. And I was like, oh man,
I missed it.
Rein it in a little bit.
Dreadful stuff to watch and no skill at all.
Yeah. Headline stuff a little bit harsh.
But in fairness, some of their rules.
Vicky Wall will do damage over there. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, she'll be off the charts over there.
Yeah, it should be unbelievable.
They're all flying. Yeah.
But some of their rules, lads, will are very good. Like, especially the one where if you don't give up the ball straight away, the ref just puts it under his arm and he takes off 50 meters.
It's a pen on nearly.
Yeah, so like that would stop straight away from the forward hanging onto the ball. If he does, he has to just drop it. And another punishment, if a fella goes in to rip the ball off him, then the free is reversed.
Yeah,
so I think you.
That's what kicks it off.
Without every milli going.
The
refs will be delighted.
Yeah.
Look at this, Jimmy O'Donoghue. He's come full circle. Like,
let's get in
the book now.
I'm growing into it, lads.
Lads, let's get into next weekend, right? Saturday evening kicks us off. Corrigan Park, Antrim against Cavan. On Sunday, we have a feast of football. Mayo Galway, 4:00, McHale Park. We have Donegal Armagh, as I mentioned, Ballybuffet at 2. At 3:30 p.m, it's Wicklow and Laois and Ockram. At 2:30 p.m, at Park Tailteann, it's Louth against Carlow. And 3:00, it's Wexford against Offaly. I want to know, James, last week you were firmly in the Donegal camp. That was before the breaking news that we got on the pod that Rian O'Neill had been cleared to play.
Yeah.
Paddy, before any of that news, you were sticking with Armagh. James, give me the case for Donegal. How are Donegal going to beat Armagh this weekend? Or why are they going to beat them?
I think if Donegal put Michael Murphy on the edge of the square, and they have Jamie Brennan, they have McBrearty, and they have McHugh up there with them, I think that they have enough individual brilliance to break down Armagh. Whereas I don't think Armagh have the same individual quality. They have an excellent system, and they have a way of getting the intensity up to a level that will challenge you. But I think when it comes down to it, towards the end of the game, if those fellas step up, they can do the damage to put Donegal through, especially in Ballybuffet.
Is Langan back for Donegal as well?
Who?
I don't know if Langan's back yet. I was looking up earlier on.
Well, he came on in the league.
Did he,
game. He came on in the league game against Armagh.
He's a serious player as well.
So are you saying, James, that, okay, yes, Rian O'Neill is their box office footballer, the lad who'll post the highest score. Are you saying they're lacking? Armagh are getting scores from everywhere across the league. They're getting scores from midfield, half back line, defence. Are you saying they're lacking another scoring forward? Is that what you're saying? Armagh is?
I think that they got a lot of scores from counter-attacking situations. I think that Donegal will look at that and try and eliminate giving them easy ball to turn over and go at them with. They'll probably break down the game a bit. They'll try and put them under pressure by giving them a load of kickouts, kick points and kick wides, because that resets the play and it stops you being counter-attacked. I think that's the key for Donegal, because Armagh, in fairness, their forwards have unbelievable hands. They've obviously practiced those long diagonal balls in. If you give the ball away, they'll hurt you. But I think that Donegal also have that ability that if McHugh can find Murphy, if McBrearty and Murphy get that link-up play there, Jamie Brennan can always get a goal for you. As we said, Langan, I just think that they have enough firepower there. I know Armagh are coming, but I don't think they're going to get Donegal this time.
And Jimmy, I agree with you on all of that. You list off the players Donegal have, and you're right, they're probably on an individual level more established than this Armagh team. Armagh, the strength is the system, their style of play. Donegal have some brilliant players, but I just think I've been burned by Donegal too many times over the last 3 or 4 years that we're waiting for them to come up with these big games. And you're looking at the quality on their 15 and you're going, they should have been dominating the Ulster Championship the last 2 or 3 years. They should have been right on our heels with Dublin when we're trying to win All-Irelands. And they keep falling short in games. They keep losing games. They shouldn't lose. There's always a couple of injuries. There's always a couple of guys who don't perform on the bigger days. And I'm at the point now, and I might be wrong, and finally they do start playing to their potential. But I didn't see anything in the league to address the issues that Donegal have had over the last 2 or 3 years under Declan Bonner. If all of those guys click, and McBrearty's kicking spinners from everywhere, and Ryan McHugh is dominating the game, and Armagh can't get a hold of him, and Murphy's back to his best, and Langan's kicking his left foot bombs 3 or 4 of them, yes, they have a massive chance, but I haven't seen them evidence that they're all going to be able to do that on Sunday. And I think the momentum is with Armagh. I think the energy is with Armagh. And you're waiting on Armagh to deliver a big championship win in the Ulster Championship, which they haven't done yet, but they've ticked every box along the way. And I think Sunday's the day they're going to do that.
I've been impressed with how Armagh have developed different shooters across the last 18 months, the amount of players that have come out of the woodwork. Rian O'Neill being back is absolutely essential to them winning this game because they do have some injury doubts. Aidan Nugent, who kicked 1-6 against Donegal in that league game, is out. He was a brilliant player across the league. Stephen Campbell, who'd been coming off the bench to kick points in most games, is suspended. Nugent suspended. Campbell suspended. Kieran Mackin, who had been a stalwart in midfield, is suspended and also injured. There's word now that Rory Grugan, there's doubts about Rory Grugan injury-wise.
If Grugan's out, it's serious pressure.
He's their playmaker. And Andrew Murnan, who, savage hands, playing full forward, has been plagued with injuries over the last couple of years. And when he's played and when he's been fit, he's been absolutely exceptional to watch. He was brilliant against Monaghan last year. Sorry?
Is anyone left?
I know.
He's going to have to play himself, is he?
McGeaney, McKeever and Donaghy and Kieran McKeever could all be starting. Donegal, again, there's doubts. I'm reading Carol Kane's piece here a couple of days ago in the Irish News. There's doubts about Langan. He did get 25-30 minutes against Armagh that league game. Caelan McGonigal is out, who was impressive in the middle third. He's actually back. They're all expected to be back. McGonigal's expected to be back. Kieran Thompson's expected to be back. And then Oisin Gallen and Jamie Brennan, they're hoping are back as well. So I don't know, James, I don't know if you've been reading the Irish News, but like it is looking like Donegal are getting their bodies back. Armagh, it's going the other direction altogether.
But Donegal are missing the two boys from suspension, aren't they? McGee. And, is it Owen Bonn-Gallagher, is it?
No, it's McFadden Ferry, who've been very good in the league as well in defence. The two Kildare boys. So
that if all those lads are injured, like you'd be thinking that's a huge advantage for Donegal. But even just as much of an advantage is the home advantage. Like it's on the Ballybuffet. I just think that a championship match at home, it's like an extra player. It's just so crucial. I just know from playing in Killarney the difference where you're just kind of.
We never got any home games in Parnell Park.
He never got any game other than home game.
You were a joke.
Never played in Parnell Park in Championship. Disgrace.
There's so many games. There's so many games.
Jimmy, you are nailed on here for Donegal. You're all in.
Well, Tommy's after convincing me. I've gone all in now.
I don't want to hear it.
I love. Going to win this one. I absolutely love Armagh. Absolutely love Armagh.
We all
are, especially their style of play.
Yeah, I love them. I'm talking myself into Donegal here as well. I actually hadn't realised Thompson. I hadn't realised Thompson and Langham were back.
Mayo.
Because when Donegal have let us down before, it's been without
too many times, Tommy.
But it's been without the likes of Kieran Thompson. He's essential. He is absolutely essential because he is one of their long range shooters. And when the game through McHugh isn't working, when McBrearty or Murphy aren't possibly firing, it's Langan and Thompson who've been kicking savage scores. So they are, I think, utterly essential to how Donegal will get on this year. We have been very frustrated with Donegal over the last couple of years, but maybe, just maybe, this might be the year that we're not talking them up and they come and they do it. That is going to be a cracker. They had a savage record in Ballybuffet for years, James. I think it was a 12-year record. They were unbeaten in the league that they lost earlier this year in Championship as well. I think they went 12, 13, 14 years without losing the game in Ballybuffet. Yeah. In Ulster, like that's very, very impressive. So, Paddy, have we talked you out of it? Are you going to stick with Armagh?
No. Armagh are going to win.
Okay.
Tight though.
Are we backing?
Hang on, you didn't say tight last week. You said handsome.
Move on. Hey, Galway Mayo lads.
He backed Armagh to win.
Get off this game.
To win Ulster last week. Galway Mayo. Paddy, give me the case. Tell me why Galway are going to beat Mayo this weekend.
I don't think Galway are going to win. I back Mayo.
No, I know
Mayo
you didn't.
I think Mayo are going to win.
Tell me why. How can Galway beat them?
How can Galway beat them? I think the injuries will be a big part of this. If Mayo, and it's only a couple of weeks since the league final, and look, Killian got back on and got 20 minutes. Didn't see anything of Paddy Durkin, Oisin Mullen, or Dermot O'Connor. They are, it goes without saying, massive players for how Mayo play, and the Mayo being successful. If one or two or three of those guys are missing, that is a massive boost to Galway. We said the issues Galway had towards the end of the league, particularly that league final, was how porous they were defensively against the Roscommon team. Roscommon probably, in terms of scorers, I would say arguably have better forwards than Mayo in terms of out-and-out shooters. So you can kind of see that, but conceding 122 or 121 or whatever it was just too nice. It was just too easy for Galway. And they had 3 weeks to try and turn this around and see how can we shut down the Mayo attack.
Did they switch off a little bit? Did they taper off?
Yeah, and that's hard to know because they were impressive through the FBD League and the National League, the kind of steamroll Division 2. And I just felt they lost that bit of energy coming towards the end of the league by losing those 2 games against Roscommon. For Galway, they need Shane Walsh back. He's integral. I was impressed with Comer and Paul Conroy, obviously in the final. They're key players, and those 3 guys need to shoot the lights out if they're going to win in Castlebar on Sunday. The issue I feel they're going to have is that Mayo have guys that can take those players out. Nearly ready-made players who have done it and proven it on the biggest days that they can deal with players like that. And that's the issue I feel for Galway. I think they'll have, if Mayo have their full contingent to pick from, I think they'll have players that can shut down Conroy, that can shut down Shane Walsh, and that can shut down Damien Comer. And then you're thinking, where do Galway go from there? That's why I'm tipping Mayo in this game. Obviously,
Mayo's showing in the league final, James. Like we saw 2 teams. We mentioned it that Mayo, if they're not operating at 110%, they're just not there, you know. And they were missing.
You need to go Kelty more.
There you go. Maybe that's it. They were missing Jim O'Connor. They were missing Oisin Mullen. They were missing Paddy Durkin that day. They had a couple of other boys out. There's doubts now about them, whether they're going to be back from Galway. McLaughlin, I don't know. I don't think we'll hear confirmation either way. I think there's always that little bit of mystique and intrigue in the build-up to championship games where we won't know who's going to be playing.
The only thing we do know is that they're going to name a completely different team to the team that actually stands.
And I will get so excited about the team that's named, and then there'll be all so many changes. So that happens every single time.
And Andy Moore will be named. This is a new one from Hurling.
How are you feeling this week, James, about this game?
It is a very tough one to call. I was just thinking if I could put myself in someone's position who I'd want to be this weekend, it would be Ryan O'Donoghue, because he's played National League, right, against Tyrone, who'd be fairly defensively strong, Kerry, who have the best defensive record, Armagh, be fairly robust defensively, Donegal, Monaghan, they all have kind of defensive systems. At the moment, Galway have nothing. They don't have any sort of plan to defend against one of the top forwards in the country. So he is licking his lips at the moment. Like if I was going to say who could be very easily man the match, it would be Ryan O'Donoghue. He could win it on his own if Galway don't fix the problems that we've said over the last couple of weeks. They need to get a defensive system. They need to keep their 6 defenders at home, or 5, at least 5 at all times. And that's the only way they're going to win. But I still think...
Do you think Hurling will play Killian O'Connor from the start? No? Jimmy?
No, I can't see it. No? Has he played club? Has he played a few club games?
What have they done in the last 3 weeks?
I haven't heard that he has. I don't think they will play him. I think he might play against Leitrim if they get past Galway. I think he might get that game against Leitrim and see where he's at then. I don't think
O'Connor's going to start.
Do you?
Yeah. I think he has to start.
Yeah.
Don't be waiting for Leitrim.
Otherwise, they'll play Orm or they'll play...
They're not at the same level. They're nowhere near the same level as them. This is a massive game for them.
Like, if you start...
But they might get him... They'll get him for 35 minutes, maybe from the start.
He played 20 minutes 3 weeks ago. They played at least 1 challenge game, probably 2. They've definitely had an internal game, and they've probably played a challenge game, and he's played them. Think of what he would have had to have proven to Horan and the strength and conditioning, the physios and all, just to get 20 minutes in the league final. So he's already had 2 or 3 weeks of ticking the boxes to play that. Yeah. It's Killian O'Connor, like. This is not some kid, like.
Yeah.
The other guys are the kids, like.
But I'm not saying he shouldn't play. I think they'll get more value out of him for 25 when the game slows down a bit, rather than at the start when he only has 35 in him anyway. Like, they'll have to take him off, and the crowd will go, ah. Whereas if they bring him on, the crowd will go absolutely mental.
Crowd will be going wild anyway in this game. Like,
yeah.
Crowd will be going wild. Killian O'Connor's named. Him and O'Donoghue inside. They could have the game won, the 2 of them.
Yeah.
But decided to take him off. I think he'll start. Unless there's been a setback over the last 3 weeks, which, look, we don't know. It's behind closed doors. I'd be surprised if O'Connor's not starting. I don't think Mayo have the luxury of saying, hold on, we look after this one. We'll bring you back for the Leitrim game.
I can just picture it. The dreary grey day in Mayo next Sunday. with the rain coming down. Not too bad.
Storm, just a hurricane.
No, it won't be too bad, but it'll be kind of a typical rotten enough day. And the noise, it's about 3 or 4 minutes before throwing, and we learn that Cillian O'Connor is either starting. I think the noise then is going to be incredible, but I also like what James is saying there with 20 minutes to go, game in the melting pot, bringing on Cillian O'Connor. We watched that game. I was sitting with Andy Moore.
If you look at this, right, just think for O'Connor, like, he's not an overly dynamic player. Like, he's not like who's a massive impact, who's just comes flying off the bench, speed and loads of energy. That's not really his game. Do you know what I mean? And if you bring him on with 50 minutes and Galway are leading and their tails are up and Mayo are struggling for scores, that's not a good environment for an inside forward to be coming into. You know, Cillian is great at getting on the end of things, his work rate, all of that stuff, but he's not a guy who's going to cut through and go buy 3 or 4 players. I just think it's harder for him, his style as a player, to come in if they're chasing a game, which is why they'd be bringing him in.
That's interesting.
If Galway have their tails up. Lads, I'm not a coach. I know nothing about coaching, but I would be thinking I'd be starting Cillian O'Connor.
Yeah. James, what sort of a headspace would Cillian O'Connor be in this week coming back from injury? Would you be knocking on the door saying I'm good to go? Like, you've been there yourself coming back from injury.
Him and James Horan have a good relationship. I reckon that he'd have told Cillian what he wants, and Cillian will have told James Horan what he expects from himself. You know, he'll have been tapping him up for a while. I want to play that game against Galway. So I think that Paddy makes a good point that he'll have had to hit a lot of markers already, but it just comes down to the case where will they get a better impact off the bench? That's just a question that they'll have.
The other thing
I don't know that.
When you ask
someone in the Mayo forward line who would shot the lights out, and Cillian sitting there looking down, Horan has to play this fella, but there's not. They've tried 3 or 4 different guys in that, and they've all had moments, but no one has put their hands up. Ryan O'Donoghue will be playing. He'll go with Doherty as well, even though the quiet league final, he's played some brilliant performances through the league after his return from injury, and he'll be going with Cillian O'Connor. I'd be amazed if he doesn't, because no one else has put their hand up.
Yeah,
it's an easy decision.
If he goes Diarmuid O'Connor, Aidan Shea.
You think Aidan's 11? Are you starting Aidan 11? Yeah,
I think he might go with that. Yeah, Ruan and
Flynn. There's injury deaths around Flynn.
Jordan Flynn looked like a bad out. More like a knock though, didn't it? It was a collision.
But I suppose Loftus or Conor O'Shea are going to slot in there if Flynn is that.
But you think he'd put Loftus? Maybe. You think he'd put Ruan on Paul Conroy, or would he let Ruan go and put a marker on Paul Conroy, like a Jordan Flynn or someone like that? Go, you just dog him. Don't let Paul Conroy take 6 or 7 bloody shots in this.
I don't think Galway put Conroy on Ruan, and I don't think Mayo put Ruan on Conroy. I think they'll just avoid each other. Yeah.
But you see, Galway's second midfielder, like it's going to be rotated between Kelly, Tiernan, Niall Daly.
Put Kelly midfield, I thought, with the idea that he'll have the legs to try and go with Ruan. I think there was an eye on this match in the league final selections, and that didn't work. So whether they go with that again, that was the trial run, and I think a lot of the stuff they were trying in that trial run didn't work. So did they turn around and say, did they stick to the guns and go, no, that was for the Mayo game and Castlebar, we're going to go with it again. Depends on what they've done over the last 3 weeks. It was a big 3 weeks for Galway. It was a big 3 weeks for them. What they did, how they wrapped up the league and how they prepared for this game. Because as big a game as it is for Mayo, it is a massive game for Pádraic Joyce and Galway. For this Galway group, it's his 3rd year there. They haven't made any impact on the championship. They've been wiped by Mayo, particularly last year's Connacht final. They're under pressure to perform and win this game. So it's a big ask. Yeah. But I just think the Mayo personnel, like you say, I think they can take Conroy out. I think that you could put O'Hara maybe on Damien Comer. If Oisin Mullen's back, you put him on Shane Walsh. I think they're nearly perfect matchups for the Mayo backs to shut down Galway's best players.
Yeah. You'd love to see Mayo with all those fellas and see where they're actually at. Do you know? we're still questioning where Mayo are at.
I like Mayo through the National League, lads. I was bigging them up, and
they haven't played their strongest 15 yet.
No. I think the strongest we saw Mayo was down in Tralee. I think that was the closest.
Good against the Dubs as well. I know the Dubs were rattled at that point as well.
But they were good against the Dubs. But James Horan made a lot of changes that day going into that game against the Dubs. He was not afraid to bring in Jack Carney for his first league game. I think that day started him 12. Made a couple of changes in attack and defense. So I think the strongest Mayo team we saw was down in Tralee that night. It's interesting. It's very hard to know where both teams are at going into this.
Lads, the two games will be top class and so on. It'll be magic stuff. Like, I hope I hope the weather is decent. That we're not. It's a washout, and it's gale force winds. I hope it's good weather, and you get these four teams who are all, I would say, genuinely would have aspirations of making a serious dent on the All Ireland this year. These four teams, and I'm just hoping that they deliver the performances on Sunday. But I'd be going. Despite all your negativity, I think Armagh will nick it in Ballybuffet, and I think Mayo, the old horse for the long road, they'll pull it out of the bag in McHale Park.
James?
I'll stick with Donegal. I'm after getting more confident on that one. The Galway Mayo game. The thing is as well, is that Mayo had a seriously depressing league final day out. Like.
They're used to that, Jimmy. If there's one team that does not matter for, it's Mayo. Like
maybe the fact they are used to.
When's the last time they had a good final?
19, they won it. Obviously, they bet Kerry. That was a big one for them.
Yeah, like so they'll probably recover from that fine. And Galway also had a disappointment. They didn't play as well as they would have liked.
Yeah. So
mentally, it would have been a job for both groups there to park the league and make sure they're at it come championship. So it'll be interesting. I have experience with Cian O'Neill. I know that he would be very good at that. That he would have said all the right things in terms of parking it. They'd have done a lot of the right physical stuff just to get them sharp again. If they can sort their defence out, I'll give Galway every chance. But
if you can stop Ryan O'Donoghue. Right? You're relying on Galway to do something that we have not seen from them ever. This group.
But the ex-manager, what was his name?
Kevin Walsh.
He was defensive minded. Like they had that.
That was a completely different team.
I know,
completely different style.
They've had the mindset.
About this team with Joyce, you were relying on them to do something that they haven't even touched on in 3 years today.
I feel like they were close. They did a half last year, and Mayo bullied them in the second half. It was perfect Mayo in the second half. And the year before that, there was a point in that game, and Mayo went to the All Ireland final. If Galway had won that Connacht final, they were playing an All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary. We might have been talking about poor Joyce leading Galway to an All-Ireland final in his first year. It was that close. It was I think it was an injury time turnaround. Shane Walsh, I didn't have enough with Shane Walsh. Shane Walsh kicked the king 7 of 13 scores, or 7 of 12.
What do you think, Tom? Who are you tipping in this one? Come on. Get off the fence.
He's rooted on it.
I'm struggling, boys. Do you know what? I think the reason why, so it's
could be a draw on it.
I've looked up the weather app, right? Ballybuffet is going to be dry on Sunday. Okay.
The first time ever.
I think now I'm in Jimmy's camp. I actually think Donegal will go in that
it's changing like the wind. Like
on Sunday, there's a 50% chance of rain in Castlebar, so I'm chalking that down as 100% rain in Castlebar. I think Mayo are coming through it. Like I really like Galway. I think we can see more from them. I think it's close, but I think Mayo are winning that game.
Right.
I look forward to seeing what Mayo team actually starts at Tyrone.
It'll be interesting reviewing them next week, lads.
It will, 100%.
We have a couple of.
Can we do another podcast tonight where I just flip on my predictions there?
You could change them and we can re-record them and re-release them next week.
Nailed that.
Can I get your predictions for the other games? There's 4 other games and we're going to review them next week. So in Ulster, Antrim Cavan, Corrigan Park.
Cavan, I'm tipping, but that is going to be. I feel that's. And McGinley, what he's done over the last 2 years with Antrim, it's a home championship game for them. They'll be targeting it, but I think Cavan will have a little bit too much there.
I think home advantage.
I think Cavan should have a little bit too much.
I think Corrigan Park gives Antrim 3 points. A 3-point head start there. I actually think.
Where did Antrim finish up in the league? Were they?
They were fourth or
They
fifth.
were around. They were in the mix until the last weekend.
In the mix, yeah, 100%. Yeah, they were in the mix.
Home advantage.
They're rated higher than Cavan.
And like Cavan weren't great in that league final.
I thought Cavan were poor lads. I thought they were blessed. I thought
they were very sluggish, very slow build up.
Slow
game was catastrophic. Testimonial.
Like, will you get away with playing that way in Corrigan Park? I'm not sure. I'm not sure you will. Like, I think Antrim are probably, they were very reliant last year on the great Paddy Cunningham to come off the bench and kick a couple of worldies to win games. They don't have that this year. I do think that they're lacking maybe a sharpshooter inside.
They've made massive progress, Tommy. And
they really have. They really have, haven't they? Like the Murrays are flying all league.
It'd be an interesting one, but I just think Cavan. I don't know why. I'm thinking like is it experience, tradition?
Yeah, experience.
Mickey Graham. I think Cavan are going to nick it.
Okay, I'll be honest. I'm not gonna make a proper call till Saturday morning, but I think Antrim. I'm backing Antrim
after it
when I'm going in to put on my cumin. I'm thinking Antrim. I am thinking Antrim here.
Right.
I think Antrim might edge it.
Who are you going with?
I'm going to go Antrim as well. Home advantage.
Okay.
I just don't think Cavan are as good as we think yet. No, they could raise a gallop for championship, but we'll see.
Right. We have got Loud Carlow in Park.
Loud. Nailed on.
Loud. We have got, I think we're all going Loud, are we?
Yeah.
Cole, Wexford, Offaly for me.
Offaly, nailed on.
Yeah. Not going to.
Where's
like Wexford obviously pushed, like this is in Wexford Park.
You're tying yourself to this home advantage thing.
Like it's in Wexford Park, but remember, it is massive. Remember what Wexford did in the first half to Dublin last year.
We won 6 All-Irelands in a row without playing a home match. Like. Jimmy.
Someday I'm going to call you on this.
Offaly are going to beat Wexford, lads. And they should.
They should. Yeah.
I don't know. I watched Offaly in the league and I was disappointed in the game against Clare. I thought they were a long way off it against Clare. They should have beaten Cork. They should have beaten Cork. They should have beaten Meath. Should have beaten Meath as well. I am going to back Offaly this time.
They came as the league went on. They probably got a bit stronger, didn't they? They picked up a few big results and then lost a couple of narrow ones.
Yeah.
Jeez. Who are you going with, Tom?
I'm going with Offaly. Yeah.
And Offaly all day, Jimmy. This is madness.
Are you going to go against your home advantage here?
Look, he's welded to it. Look.
No, I'll go home advantage. I'll go.
Oh my God.
I'll go Wexford.
Yeah.
Based on what?
Offaly should win that. But
where did Wexford finish in Division 4?
Oh, they were fourth, maybe. Fifth, maybe.
Are you sure you don't want to change your mind here? Like,
yeah, no, that is a bull call. I'd be looking for a red card early in the game now.
You're sticking with your home call?
Contributed to a melee.
All right.
Won a melee in the first minute.
An umbrella term will come in my favor. No, I'm going to change. I'm going to go. I'll go with
Offaly. Okay, you change. Okay. All right, and what about the last game? The two relegated sides in Division 3. Wicklow against Laois. Home advantage for Wicklow, who obviously Colin Kelly, their manager, stepped away halfway through the league campaign. They had a very difficult league. They lost Davy Burke. They had a bit of momentum behind them maybe last year, the year before. Lost Burke. They've lost Kelly.
But Tommy, like, Laois had a diabolical league as well. Like,
Laois
really bad end to the league. To get
with Billy Sheehan as coach, they'd shown us some nice signs.
Like, I hear you. I remember I watched them in the Auburn Cup final back in January. And a bit of a run. They back there. They gave Dubs a good game down in Dr. Cullen Park. Now Billy Sheehan, that kind of energy he'd bring, passion Laois would have. And you expected Laois to kind of have a bit of a run at it. And the league just kind of fell to pieces for them to get relegated. Like, they're on a bad low going into that game as well. And really dipping into Jimmy's box of tricks there. The home advantage in Auckland for Wicklow. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with Laois. But this would not be a surprise if Wicklow turned them over. But I think Laois, they have to have something. Like, they have to have something there. Like.
Are you going with Laois?
I'm going to go with Laois.
It sounded like you're going with Wicklow there.
Yeah, that's how tight it's going to be. But I'm backing Laois based on not a whole pile, but that Billy Sheehan can get a gallop out of them and that they can turn it around. And they're not as bad as the end of their league form suggested.
Yeah. Alan Costello was installed mid-campaign, and the first game in, they pulled their first win out against Longford. It wasn't enough. They kicked 20 points that day. Wicklow's keeper, Mark Jackson, is a fella who's kicked plenty of points in championship. Some of their forwards have been shown quite well. James, would you give them chance? You love the home advantage.
It's a 50-50 game. Definitely, that's a very hard one to call. It'll come down to a moment, probably a decision or a bit of brilliance. It's a lottery to call it. But I'll go with Laois because Billy Sheehan, Kerry man, he'll have something up his sleeve there. I think. Hard
I wonder,
to call, though.
would we see anything like the infamous Battle of Auckland back in the day? I'm not sure if we'll see that this day when the referee was bundled into the boot. Do you know
that's always what this could turn into a UFC podcast. What we talk about is rousing. UFC and hurling. We spent more time talking about that. And army training camp. I'm going to give it to Laois as well. I'm going to give it to Laois. Like Survivor.
We can't all go Laois because then we look cat if they
But
lose.
the last time we did that, we all backed Offaly. We all backed Offaly to beat Cork. Do you remember to stay up?
Yeah,
and they didn't. So I
definitive.
You know what? Okay, I flipped it.
Offaly, Laois, Cavan.
There's going to be a shock. There's going to be a shock in Leinster.
Louder nailed down to beat Carlo.
Louder, I think, will win that game. There's going to be a shock in Leinster.
There'll always be a draw as well.
Okay. I know I'm going to stick with it. Right.
Couple of questions. Lads. We'll enjoy the weekend of football.
Yeah, 100%. Couple of questions from the Football Pod listeners. Evan Mannion wants to know what we made in New York. Does it look promising for the future? It's difficult with the amount of turnover that they have.
They could win a few games in that Tailteann Cup if they had that same squad playing. Like they pushed Sligo all the way. They were lucky in the end.
There's a couple of questions in about the McKenna brawl, which is covered in depth. Joseph O'Dwyer, I think he sent this question in, I'd say 4 weeks in a row. Would Conor Sweeney get into the Tyrone, Kerry, Dublin or Mayo starting teams? Sweeney at his peak, James, is a fella you would have come across a bit. Savage footballer, Tipperary start.
Really good. In his peak, he's not far off his peak. No, what is he? He's 30, 31.
He's been doing it for a long time for Tip.
He has.
A couple of All-Stars. He's an All-Star from 16, does he?
He's an All-Star. Himself and Quinlivan, I'd say, got one.
At 20, sorry, obviously the COVID.
Do you know what? Tyrone could do with him now. Do you know?
Dublin could do with him now as well.
Armagh could do with him.
Yeah, he's a quality player.
I don't think he get into the Kerry starting six, maybe. But apart from that,
he'd be in the Mayo team as well.
Yeah. Oh, Mayo would love him. Oh, he would be some operator for Mayo. It's exactly what they need.
Yeah.
On the left to pull the trigger for them. On the loop. You know, he's an excellent player. And he deservedly won the
4 weeks.
and had the run.
Question, we got it to you.
Adam Keane wants to know if Galway beat Mayo, are they legitimately contenders for the All-Ireland?
I think if they win that game, and I was actually going to ask this, for Galway to win this game in Castlebar, I think the boost they get out of it, it would have to be a serious performance to do it. I think it puts them in it, yeah.
It does. A winning Castlebar would be massive.
I'd say they're thinking it. That's the beauty of this championship. I think, honestly, there's 6 or 7 teams that are thinking, I mightn't say it publicly, but we have a right chance at the All-Ireland this year. I think Galway already think it. But if they go to Castlebar and turn over Mayo, they would be. They would be. They'd be in the mix.
Niall Flynn wants to know, when will a top pundit come out and say that Aidan O'Shea should be dropped? I think that's a bit ridiculous.
Dropped?
For who?
But I just think there's a bluster around Aidan O'Shea that constantly comes out.
There's been a thing around for 10 years about this type of stuff. Like
it's because he's so high profile.
Yeah. And do what? Just drop Aidan O'Shea because someone doesn't like his personality or hasn't any idea who he is or what he's like as a person, but they just don't like him because he's high profile, so we should drop him. And they get on this bandwagon. It's nonsense. And I no affiliation with Aidan O'Shea. He had some serious games against him. But this idea, drop him. Like no one else, folks, no other players have that scrutiny on that I can think of. And the case of, for who? Who else is putting their hand up and saying, well, I'll take Aidan O'Shea's place and I'll do much better than what he's doing. He hasn't been at his best this season. There's no two ways about it. But it's not like Mayo have 25 lads there knocking on the door going, James Horn, how are you blind to playing this fella instead of me? Yeah. We would trust James Horn's judgment on that one. I think he's earned it. I think they both earned that little bit of respect from that. So I don't have much credence for questions like that.
He's got such a unique skill set too. I think there's legitimate questions on how do you get the best out of him at the minute, because I think the game has changed and his game has changed, and he's obviously coming into his 30s. But the amount of times we'll get asked, like, when is somebody going to call out that Aidan O'Shea? I just think it's outrageous. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yes, but I think it's a case of.
I would say he had a poor league final, and Jimmy, I know we spoke about it. He was offered in the league final, but so was the whole Mayo team.
The whole team.
Still, I see someone coming in going, he needs to play. There's no one, in my view, in the Mayo setup that is doing that and putting that pressure on Aidan O'Shea yet that I've seen.
James, what were you going to say there?
With Aidan, it's a case of, I think, you only know what you had when it's gone, kind of thing. When he's gone, they'll be like, geez, do you know who we could do it now? Is Aidan O'Shea. Like, he doesn't get any credit anymore. It's like he's used every bit of credit he had is just gone for some reason.
Yeah.
I think it's very unfair, but he's going to be very important to Mayo. They're not going to go anywhere without him. Whether that is 20 minutes off the bench to boost the crowd, like we said with Killian, or whether it's from the start, I don't know. But he's massively important to them. I guarantee he leads that dressing room as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Would I be right in thinking that Donaghy had a bit about it at him as well? Was he appreciated more outside the county than he was within Kerry, or is that fair?
Donaghy?
Yeah.
No.
I'm not talking about inside the dressing room. I'm not talking about inside the dressing room. Talking about in general in the county. Like, you're looking back and you're thinking that Kieran Donaghy, right? He's turning. I know, but he's turning it on and he's leading us in sacks for a Munster title. Like, his Kerry career was written off in the middle of the last decade. Like,
in 2014 he got no game in the quarterfinal and then came on in the semi-final and caught that great ball and was playing every game after.
The replay and the final. He was nearly Footballer of the Year off the back of. Like, you're a contender. Who was the contenders with you that year? Yourself? Was Donaghy actually nominated?
No, Connolly. I forget. Was it Andy Moore?
Someone from that Murphy, surely.
Must have been a Donegal player.
Yeah.
Murphy or...
I forget.
He definitely won an All-Star that year off the back.
Neil Gallagher or someone like that. Would have been Roy McHugh.
Yeah, he did. No,
I just wonder, was he a little bit underappreciated in the fact that, it's just an interesting.
No, honestly,
Donaghy had a good run at it, lads.
Okay, fair enough.
He was top of the pile in everyone's mind. Honestly, Donaghy was very appreciated.
Because even Owen Sheehan interviewed David Clifford and Darren Moynihan last week, and he asked him the question. He actually brought up the Monaghan goal in Clonus in the Super 8s that we've spoken about before, and he linked it. He said, James
I heard this.
James O'Donoghue played the ball in. Kieran Donaghy touched it down and Clifford buried it. No one said, what did you learn from the boys? And he said, do you know, from Kieran I learned how to stick the chest out and whatever else. And from James, I learned to appreciate movement and how to win the ball at the top of the D. Did David Clifford burn your ear about that? How did that work?
No.
He said he said that he learned these things by watching it. He said that the environment in Kerry at the time was you all helped each other.
Yeah, with Donaghy would have been very like that. And we always did, we always used to have a good spell before training with the goalies, where we'd have the outside fellas kicking it in, and the inside fellas would always get chemistry off that. You know, there'd always be a chat around, you do this, you do that, or you come off me this way. That soon faded away to band work and hurdles, like, you know. Like,
so you lost that.
No, but I mean, like that. I always find that those little 10 or 15 minute bits together where it's completely uncoached, unplanned, is where you actually chat about a certain situation or a certain aspect of the game. And like the boys used to practice crossfield balls at that time in games, in training, rather than setting up a drill and getting everyone involved and waiting at a cone. So you might have 10 minutes of doing it before the session. So it was never a case of, there's a young lad in there, let's tell him how to play. There was never any of that. And Clifford was so well able at the time anyway.
But he was outrageous coming in. But I just thought it was interesting in the manner that he picked out those two things. And he said that he learned by watching. And he learned, and you guys all picked it up off each other. And that's interesting that the chemistry was developed. Like, it wasn't a coaching environment. It was lads chatting to each other, saying, probably figuring out how a fella moves, how he turns, how he plays the ball, how he likes to receive it. That is interesting.
Yeah. The sewer rats, they used to call us, the inside forwards. That's what Kelly christened us. The sewer rats would be the inside forwards before training, you know, taking shots and creating goal shots and stuff like that. Really? So, like, it wasn't
just jealous.
It's important.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
It's an important part of training, I think.
We might talk about winning the ball in space in the D, the most congested area of the pitch, next week on the pod. There was a great shot actually of Conor Patrick slipping into full forward. It was behind the goal, and where he won it. It was really, really good the way he did it. So I just think it'll be nice to get the two of you talking about that next week. We'll have a bit more footage to work off. Very quickly, Paddy Andrews, I've given you your password. I've given you your login. You have to get on the championship.fantasygaelicfootball.com and set up your team. We have got a league set up.
There's a lot on here, lads.
No.
A lot going on.
You are taking the championship seriously this year. Okay?
Yeah.
You're all right. Your position is not on
if these podcasts didn't go on for 4 hours, I might get a chance to do it tonight.
Okay, well, we're wrapping up now, right? We're not going to actually pick your team this week. We're going to shoot a couple of names around. James, who have you...
have it ready for this weekend, right? Mark your cards.
Well, we've...
Coming in. I'm going to pick a load of Antrim players.
Right, well, we have...
Two max.
Well, this is what happens.
Who are the two...
gets in the way.
Who are the two dubs you're putting in? Give us that much.
Who are the two dubs? Jeez.
Costello.
Mightn't put any dubs in at this rate.
I didn't even pick a dub.
What?
Two dubs I'd put in. Who's
Costello.
on the freeze? Costello and Dean Rock, maybe. I'm just going to pick 6 free takers. That's the gig, isn't it?
Okay. All right.
Not like the circle to this.
Clifford and
Pick 6
Gainey.
free takers.
I'm back in my front 6. McCurry, McCarron, O'Neill, Clifford, Kilkenny, Highland.
O'Neill. Rian O'Neill.
Yeah, Rian O'Neill.
Go on, who else?
McCurry, McCarron, O'Neill, Clifford, Kilkenny, Jimmy Highland. There'd be no tracking back in that full forward.
I went with something similar. I didn't think... I went with Gainey instead of Rian O'Neill, I'd say. I think I'm fairly similar to you then.
You doubled up in the carry forwards.
Yeah.
Right. Paddy, we'll work on that this week.
Is it the same? Just tell me this. For frees and open play scores, it's the same.
It's the same.
No. It's not.
It's not.
There's always a catch.
Yeah.
There's always a little bitter aftertaste. Like.
Read the T's and C's. I'll put it that way. And I'll be plaguing you to get your team picked because Cahill in Fancy Gaelic is going to put your team out there so people can have a look at your managerial decisions. You say you're not a coach. I think there's a coach in there somewhere, Paddy Andrews.
Some insight though, isn't it? Like,
yes.
They took Johnny Heaney out of the backs.
They did. They put him in the forwards. And Aidan Nugent. He was my cheat code. He's obviously suspended this week.
You're putting Cormac Costello centre back.
Yeah, exactly. Folks, thank you very much for listening in to episode 13 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. Brought to you in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GA Senior Football Championship. Check out # the toughest for more. Paddy Andrews, James O'Donoghue, it was a pleasure. We're going to be holding you to your predictions this week. Are you all set?
It's going to be a great weekend, lads. The championship is properly kicking off this weekend.
We can't wait for it. James,
it's
looking forward to it.
Can't wait. And I can't wait to be proved right come Monday week.
Not an away win in sight.
That's it from the Football Pod. Thanks, folks.
Cheers,
right, lads.